Welcome in another edition of Curd and Long. Steve Sparky Fifer here, along with Ryan Horvat, BetMGM tonight. Check him out, BetQL Radio Network all over the beautiful country, or you can obviously always stream that too. You always see the highlights always coming up on Twitter. Always fun to see him and Trista Crick doing their thing. All right, so let's talk about this Green Bay Packers loss by only 10. Right, the Packers covered. They did what they were supposed to do. A lot of people, and this is from the gambling aspect, a lot of people, NFL's rigged. The Buffalo is a point from going over or whatever, and the interceptions, and this is, crap and everything else. I jumped into the BetQL chat last night for the Buffalo Green Bay one. I wasn't hosting it. Somebody else was hosting it, but I jumped in anyhow to kind of talk Packers with them because I was bored watching the game. And rightfully so. It was 14, nothing like that. So I hopped in to check. And it pretty much was it was criminal to not give Aaron Rodgers more weapons than what Green Bay has given him to work with this year and so forth. Then you see another video on Twitter, Ryan, from a fan that was at the game that I follow, and he was recording and asked Mark Murphy, who was at the game, "Hey man, when are you going to get us some wide receiver help?" And Murphy turned and looked at him and said, "Before Tuesday," and walked away. So we'll see. We'll see if this actually happens. We're recording this Monday morning, so we'll see if they actually get some wide receiver help before Tuesday. And if they do, we will talk about it Wednesday when we record next on Curd and Long. First question first. What frustrated you the most in this Packers loss to the Buffalo Bills, Ryan Horvat?
Yeah, that's a tremendous question. So there was a lot that frustrated me because, I know a lot of people are happy just that they competed last night because, man, especially offensively, I know if you look at the box score, they scored 17 points last night, but that was probably the best offensive game plan, the one that they put together for the second half where I think Matt LaFleur was tired of seeing Aaron Rodgers take a beating. It was time to run the football. What frustrates me, all right, let's start what frustrates me the most, though, is that in the second half, right? Like in Aaron Rodgers, if you listen to the presser last night,
I did twice.
He seemed like he was pissed off about the game plan in the second half because they weren't allowing him to take shots down the field. He didn't think they were aggressive enough, it sounded like. But that has to be the game plan moving forward.
Thank you. I thought for sure you were going to agree with Aaron Rodgers and be like, you let him throw the football more.
No.
I thought that's for sure what I was going to walk into.
No, I'm sick of seeing him in shotgun so I like what they did last night. I mean, this is a running football team. This is Aaron Jones' football team. It's no longer Aaron Rodgers' football team. They don't have the weapons on the outside. So what frustrates me the most, because there's a lot to talk about, is that if that's the game plan the last 3 weeks against Washington, against New York, both New Yorks, I'm going to say they at least win 2 of the 3 games.
Agreed.
Instead of letting Aaron Rodgers play hero ball. And then I'm not upset about a 27-17 loss to the Bills because the Bills are ridiculous, man. It's so hard right now to stop Josh Allen. Listen to this, right? So they went into this game averaging, I believe, 7.3 yards per play under pressure, which is 2 yards more than any other offense in the NFL. Last night against Green Bay, 11.6 yards per play under pressure. So really quickly, another thing that I'm frustrated about is just some of the guys that we brought back. Rasul Douglas last night, I know he had the interception late in the game, but that interception didn't matter unless you bet the Packers plus 11.5, right? Rasul Douglas
had Buffalo to score more than 28 points. That also mattered there, yes.
Yes, but Rasul Douglas last night, who gets overpaid this offseason, the first 4 targets he allows to be caught for 93 yards and a touchdown. Jaire Alexander last night, everybody, if you look on social media, you would think he got cooked by Stefon Diggs last night. Absolutely not. He saw 5 targets in coverage, didn't give up a single catch, forced 3 incompletions, had an interception in that game. Why was he not covering Stefon Diggs the entire game? So there's a couple things that frustrate me. One, that offensive game plan should have been used weeks ago. This is a running football team. No more hero ball. Devontae's gone. MVS is gone. Secondly, the secondary just hasn't lived up to expectations, man. Like all summer long, I thought this was going to be a top 5 defense. And I know the numbers look good for the secondary, but last night, Eric Stokes got benched. Rasul Douglas, again, gave up his first 4 targets for 93 yards and a touchdown. And I get it's the Buffalo Bills. Even when you pressure Josh Allen, I know he's like Superman right now, but you just couldn't get a hand on him. Everything kind of frustrated me. I'm not happy about only losing by 10 points to the Buffalo Bills. This was the team that many predicted to win the Super Bowl this year, even without Devontae Adams. So it's not Rutgers University. 3-5 in, a hard-fought effort on Sunday Night Football doesn't make me happy.
Okay, so I think to a degree, you're at the stage now of moral victories for this football team. I never thought we'd be there with an Aaron Rodgers-led Packers team talking about moral victories, but you lose Quay Walker to an ejection. That was beyond one of the dumbest things I've ever seen from a football player. First of all, it wasn't a coach. It was a practice squad player, whoever it was that he shoved. I didn't see the dude move his lips. So I don't really know what he was upset about. I mean, it looked like he was trying to help him more than anything else. So he gets kicked out of the game. I tweeted, in a sad way, I don't think it's going to affect the defense at all that Quay Walker isn't out there, to be honest with you.
That's what I said.
Right. Exactly. So Quay Walker is fine. But then the Devondre Campbell hurting his knee. Has he been Devondre Campbell of last year? No, but he's still a rock solid force that knows the plays, knows where he's supposed to be and all that in the middle. Then you have to go run two completely inexperienced guys out there in the middle of the defense. And what changed? They didn't score. I mean, Buffalo didn't score. So the fan reaction and a lot of reaction that you see after the game is, well, let's not give credit to the Packers defense for only giving up 3 points in the second half. Buffalo wasn't trying. They were just playing keep away. They weren't seriously trying to score points on them. Okay, well, maybe that was the case or not. But from a Packer fan standpoint, I'm using it as a moral victory. I know moral victories. I followed the Bucs through their crappy years forever. I lived for moral victories every night, losing by only 10 points for the Bucs facing, Shaq or whoever the case may be. So right. I think that's pretty good. They could have rolled over and played dead. They didn't roll over and play dead. The other moral victory in all of this is, and we'll get to positives later, but is they didn't abandon what was actually working finally. Like I thought after one drive of running the ball, Rodgers would be like, okay, I did it your way. Now we're going back to my way. Shotgun spread. Let's go. To hell with this. I'm not doing this all game. But he didn't really ever abandon it at any point. So I think there's a moral victory there. Not that I'm happy with the loss, but there is something that you can hold on to. And like I said, there's more positives. We'll get to that later. To me, the thing that frustrated me most, and we'll talk about Joe Barry in the next segment, what you said, Jaire Alexander. This is why I don't get. Jaire, you know the game plan, right? What are you doing, John, with Stefon Diggs? You know you're not covering him. Like, what are you doing? Then that was out at the beginning of the game. Then comes word they were doing it again coming out of the tunnel for the second half. He didn't guard him the whole first half. He knew he wasn't guarding him in the second half. And then Diggs is like, oh, I won. And Alexander's like, oh, I won. Ain't neither one of you bums won. You didn't face each other all night. Nobody won anything. Nobody proved anything. You were going against their second or third DB, Diggs. Alexander, you were covering their second best wide receiver. Nobody won anything. You never faced each other. If you faced each other 80% of the offensive snaps, and Alexander held him to like one catch, Alexander won. Fine. Diggs owned him with 2 touchdowns. Diggs won. But when you don't actually match up against each other, nobody wins that. I mean, that was the most overplayed storyline of the night. The one thing that did happen, though, it seemed to get the defense a little fired up, right? They were playing a little bit with some emotion on the defensive side of the ball. Buffalo's offense was playing with some emotion as well. So that's fine. But that was the most frustrating thing. Like, first of all, the trash talking, that drove me nuts. But then the fact that you didn't put your best DB on their best wide receiver. Again, we just had this conversation at the beginning of the year, Horvat. And Alexander was hot that Joe Barry didn't let him do it. And here we go, and we're back in the same situation again. I don't get it.
No, exactly, man. And if you watch Terry McLaurin, and I guess like the argument would be, okay, so Jaire got a couple shots at Terry McLaurin last week, but man, you watch Terry McLaurin, he won Washington that game again yesterday. Terry McLaurin.
We're not talking about the Colts game. Move on.
Right. Yeah. Good call. Yeah. And McLaurin's on another level right now. But that's the other thing, because, I mean, it just doesn't really make any sense right now because Joe Barry just doesn't make the simple adjustments, right? And so he is just destroying Matt LaFleur right now. So I think what this comes down to, I'm not Fire the defensive coordinator guy, because I'll say this really quickly. Like Don Capers and even Mike Pettin, man, they didn't have a defense like this. And I know there's some holes in this defense, but then whose issue is this? Because this defense sucks right now. They're severely they're really overrated. So is this Brian Gutekunst's fault? Because look at the last 4 years, 5 years of draft picks. It's a lot of draft capital for the defense to be this bad. Or is it Joe Barry's scheme? Somebody has to take the sword here, though, because
Well, that's the question. So how much of
either
a hot
Joe Barry needs to be fired in season, and I know that's not the Packer way, or it's Brian Gutekunst has to go. But one of them has to be to blame here, because that's a lot of draft capital for the defense to be getting absolutely torched. Last night, okay, you gave up 27 to the Bills. That's what it is. But the Commanders, the Giants, you can't lose to Daniel Jones, Heineke, and Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson may be the worst quarterback in this league right now.
That's the thing, right? So the question now is, how much of a hot seat should Joe Barry be on? I think you're saying he definitely should be on a hot seat here.
I think he should be fired last week.
For sure. But this is the thing. First of all, this is Matt LaFleur's guy, right? They were friends before all of this. They're going to be friends after all of this. So the only way Joe Barry gets canned is if Gutekunst or Murphy says, I've seen enough, he's gone. You know, I'm getting tweets of, oh, do you think Matt LaFleur should be fired? No, Matt LaFleur's not getting fired. And let me tell you why, okay? He was hired to coach the guy after Rodgers. He was not hired for Rodgers. That was supposed to be a couple-year deal. Rodgers retires or goes somewhere else. He gets the next quarterback. That's what this was. This was LaFleur selling Mark Murphy on the offense he wanted to run with the next quarterback. Because it's, how do you win without a Hall of Fame quarterback? Because the odds of us getting another Hall of Fame quarterback after Favre and Rodgers is slim. So what coach can sell me on the best game plan of how we're going to win after Rodgers? I think that's what they were looking for in the next guy. You saw last night, you can run the football and be effective. And they were being effective without a deep threat. And LaFleur and Rodgers both in postgame said, pretty much, game plan went up in smoke once Christian Watson went down and got hurt again. Because he was going to be on the outside. He was going to be their go guy. He was going to be their deep threat to take the top off the defense and keep them honest. That was the game plan, and he was going to be in the game plan and be that guy.
Yeah.
But like the rest of the year, he can't stay healthy. They lose him, and they don't have another guy to replace him at this point. And now you got the trade deadline Tuesday. That's what they need to be looking for. They need to be, if they're going to go get somebody, like we talked about, Cooks in Houston, a guy that takes the top off the defense and stretches the defense. That's what they need more than anything.
Yeah, I really have to, I got to say something quickly on that, though. I'm so tired of the excuses. It's always something, though. It's David Bakhtiari. We had all these great packages with our new offensive line, and then we found out 90 minutes before kick, David Bakhtiari was unable.
And Elton Jenkins was 90 minutes before kick.
What is going on with these two guys? And it's Christian Watson went down. Roger says it. We had 5 things prepared for him. We were going to use these different packages for him. All right. Well, you know what, man? When you get punched in the face, you have to have a backup plan. Like LaFleur has to have a backup plan. Rodgers, you have to have a backup plan, man. I mean, you're relying on a rookie, Christian Watson. So yeah, I mean, I saw that video as well as it's went viral. I felt like Mark Murphy was kind of just brushing the guy off. Like, yeah, I got you. Tuesday.
Yeah. Right. Maybe. This is the other thing. There's a lot of talk about Rodgers being old and declining and so forth. And I don't think Rodgers is the same guy that he was. You don't either. We both agree on that. But having said all of that, when you watch Josh Allen get out and run and pick up those yards, and you watch Rodgers, there's a part of you that gets frustrated because you're like, 12 used to do that. 12 don't do it anymore. But he used to do that, and that helped separate him a little bit and take some pressure off his offensive line because they knew there was an ability for him to run. Is he the fastest guy in the world? Is he fast, Josh Allen? Hell no. But there was a threat at least. Now, there's none of that. And then Rodgers talks about, well, yeah, you got to have running lanes and so forth. And I was kind of looking and da-da-da-da-da. To me, and I don't know this to be true, I think it's a guy at the end of his career that doesn't want to have to go through some big rehab on some big hit or something crazy like that, and doesn't want to put himself necessarily in more harm's way than necessary because already he's taking hit after hit after hit with that offensive line.
Yeah, and that was the other thing that I was going to say. A thing that really frustrated me was with Rodgers is last night we saw he could still move his legs. He was getting out of the pocket. They were using him on some rollouts. Yep. So again, where has this been the last 4 weeks? Last night, that's a tough game against Buffalo on the road. But against Washington, against the Giants, against the Jets. And I know those are pretty good. Those are solid defenses, especially the Giants. Look what Wink's been able to do there. But when he's a statue in the pocket, that's why he's off on these throws. He's got to move around a little bit. And last night he had a couple quarterback scrambles, so he finally used his legs. Again, where has this been the last couple weeks? So I completely agree with you. I'm glad that you brought that up, though. I even tweeted out wait, Rodgers' legs still work?
Yes.
I didn't know. He should use them a little bit more. That has to be the game plan moving forward. And the other thing that pissed me off, I completely agree. Right now, he looks like a guy at the end of his career that's like, I want to enjoy life after football, because he doesn't look completely all in for this team, or he would be every once in a while, you know what, man, pick up the first down with your legs. But also last night, he had a shot where I believe it was a RPO, but I believe he gives it to Jones. Yeah, it was Jones. And he could have pulled it. And even Von Miller said to him, if you would have pulled that, you would have had the first down. And Rodgers was like, I made up some excuse. But again, like, we want the ball in Aaron Jones' hands. But every once in a while, pull that, man, and pick up the first down with your legs, because we've seen the last couple of years he's had a couple opportunities to do so, and he has it. And I know he's 38 years old, but I mean, if you don't want to win that bad, then don't come back, man. Then move on to Jordan Love. I will say that. And I love Aaron Rodgers, but you got to, I mean, there's plays to be made. You can't leave plays on the field.
Did you see the Von Miller post-game interview after the game? Did you see that?
No.
They asked Von Miller what him and Aaron Rodgers were talking about during the game or whatever. And Von's like, I asked him why they weren't throwing the ball more. Like, why aren't you throwing the ball, man? You're 12. You're Aaron Rodgers, whatever.
Because of you, Von, because he's getting teed off on, and LaFleur said, we're down 21-0. Aaron, we did it your way. We did it your way, and we're down 3 scores. I am not going to sit here and watch Zach Tom, urinate down his leg and watch you get the crap kicked out of you this entire night. And I'm not losing you for the rest of the season, because I think we might have a shot to beat Detroit. We are running the football. We're not beating this football team. We're not letting Von Miller and these ridiculously good linebackers tee off on you all night.
Correct.
Shut up and hand the ball off. I think that's how that conversation went down, and that's why Rodgers was pissy in the press conference.
So Von asked him. So they're like, so what did Aaron say to you? And he kind of smirked. He's like, well, I don't really want to talk about, necessarily what we talked about after that. But I asked him because, he's Aaron Rodgers. You should let him throw the ball more or whatever. He goes, and I figured they would run the ball more. He goes, but I didn't think they would run it complete, like that much as they did, and kind of take the ball out of Aaron Rodgers' hand or whatever. And then you go to the post-game press conference with Rodgers, and the question was asked, how much pressure do you feel to try and carry this thing? And Rodgers goes, well, if it's going to be like tonight, I'm not going to get many attempts. So, there's not as much. But if we're going to throw it more, then obviously I've got some more pressure on me to do it. That dude, I'm telling you, I said it from the get. I said it before the season when Leroy was trying to sell everybody, he'll be fine throwing it just 20 times a game. He threw it 30 times last night. He still wasn't happy in the post-game presser. You could see how upset he was. That dude does not want to hand off the ball that much like he did last night. I mean, he did, 30 handoffs between Dylan and Aaron Jones? There's no way. There's absolutely – they get the Lions this week. You mark my words. They're going to come out slinging that football. I will be shocked if they get 30 carries between the two of them again.
I'll say this really quickly. That is the way they beat Detroit, though. That secondary is god-awful. So if Rodgers can't throw for 285 yards against Detroit, maybe it is time for him to go away. Also, really quickly, I know we talked about this last week. If they can't beat Detroit, I think it's tank for C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young or Hendon Hooker, Tennessee's quarterback. I'll take Will Levis out of Kentucky, even if they're going to sit for a year behind Rodgers, because I don't know if you'll be able to evaluate Jordan Love.
But how do you tank, right? So if you're the Colts,
because I don't think they have to do a whole lot. If they can't beat the Lions next week, man, who else on this schedule are they beating? They're not going to beat Dallas. They're definitely not going to beat Philadelphia. No. Imagine what Philadelphia is going to do to this Packers team. Did you see AJ Brown yesterday?
Yes.
Like, Philadelphia is like, hey, we're going to go up 24-0, and then we're going to, run the ball with the number 1 rushing offense the entire second half. Green Bay, now there's a game where I don't think there's a spread big enough.
No, I agree with you on that. My point is, if you have a team that, like you say, from NFL standards, right, is tanking for whoever the case may be. In the NBA, GMs just trade away their star talent and have nobody, like the process with the Sixers, right? They don't tell the guys don't play hard. They don't tell the guys we're trying to lose. They just don't put a lot of talent out there and tell the coach, good luck, do what you got to do. But they know they don't have enough to win. So you look at this Packers team, the only way you could really do that would be to bench Rodgers and start Love. There is no situation on earth that will ever happen in this season. It's never going to happen. 12's going to play through it. Then the question is going to become, how big of implosions is there going to be inside that locker room eventually? Because eventually he's going to snap. I'm telling you, you can see the volcano. It's starting to build a little bit within Rodgers here. He's been peace, love, and joy for the last 3 weeks. But now that's 4 losses in a row. If they lose to the Lions, the explosion from Rodgers in the press conference after and during the game may be coming. because I thought it would have happened by now. But
Yeah.
eventually, Mount Aaron is going to go poof, and then everybody's going to run for cover.
Yeah. I mean, I'm talking worst case scenario, but I do think they actually, and we'll talk about this, we still have a couple more episodes to go this week, but I do think that they're going to get right this week. And I think last night, I do think that that was a good thing for that locker room, to be honest. Just them competing, the defense with a couple takeaways. It did drive me nuts. Maybe I'm old school that they were celebrating down 3 scores.
Yes.
We're doing the D-train thing. You're down 3 scores. Rasul Douglas, you don't get to celebrate that interception, pal, because every week you have 3 defensive holding penalties against you. And again, you gave up your first 4 targets. In the second half, I brought up Zach Tom. Something interesting really quick. In the second half, and I know Rodgers, they moved him around a little bit. They ran the ball a lot more, and this is more run blocking. But Zach Tom, man, that first series, he gave up a sack. He gave up a quarterback hit. He was terrible his first 6 pass blocking snaps. Then after that, clean game, no pressures allowed the rest of the way once they started rolling Rodgers out and moving him around a little bit. So he did improve as the game went on, but I never want to see him ever again. They have to get Elton Jenkins and David Bakhtiari back, or it's going to be a long season, and they may not be able to beat Detroit. And the thing that scares me, man, Detroit could run the football. Jamal Williams, Swift's just getting back into that lineup, I know. Oh, that's scary because they could score. They just don't play any defense. But, man, I'm just upset about last night. I know they covered the spread, but 3-5 in the NFC is just straight embarrassing.
Yeah, no doubt. It is embarrassing. But we'll see how this goes going forward. So we both agree Joe Barry probably on the hot seat, but yeah. I don't think they fire him midseason. I guess I would be really surprised at this point if they fire him midseason. I don't know how much the defense really changes, even if they do fire him.
Do you think that Brian Gutekunst would do that as well? Because like you said, this is a
Murphy
guy.
Murphy.
Or Mark Murphy.
Mark Murphy would be the one that would lose his patience and be like, I've seen enough. I'm done.
I don't know about that, man. I think Goot would lose his patience. Well, I think they're both right now losing their patience, though. I mean, last week, the game in D.C. against the Commanders, they were all there. I was there, and I saw Brian Gutekunst. He walked into that game, and then he went up to his press box, and then you saw on Twitter, he left with, 3 minutes to go.
Yeah.
He's seen enough. The problem is, who's out there right now? We keep doing this with wide receiver, what wide receiver could help fix this offense. I think you have to just do what you did last night and try to get guys back, because you're not going to end up with DJ Moore. You're not going to end up with, you
might get Cooks from the Texans.
I would take Cooks from the Texans. But what I think they need more right now is maybe another cover linebacker. If we're talking about Joe Barry and how awful his scheme's been, I guess it doesn't really matter. But I wouldn't mind another safety that actually wants to tackle, because Darnell Savage needs to be benched. I know Stokes got benched last night. Savage just keeps missing tackles. And Adrian Amos looks old this season. He looks bad as well. So the scheme sucks. And also, guys aren't playing up to their potential or up to their contracts right now.
So let me ask you this.
Disaster year or two, but it's also the scheme. Why is Eric Stokes, who runs a 4.3 40, playing 15 yards off Gabe Davis or Stefon Diggs? And why is Jaire Alexander not on Stefon Diggs? Yeah, Joe Barry needs to go. I know they won't do it midseason. It's not the Packer way, but if there's any hope for this season, they should do it.
Would you get rid of Joe Barry and replace him with a guy that's available right now to come in and be a new DC without any of his own coaches underneath him to install what he wants to do on the 3-4? I'm thinking of Wade Phillips.
Wade Phillips. I don't know, man. You know who I kind of want? I don't even know. I mean, I was really hoping. Yeah, I don't know about that though. Mike Zimmer is so damn crabby. I mean, he was look what has happened for Minnesota since Mike Zimmer has left. They
haven't played a tough schedule either. Let's be honest.
Well, and the reason but the problem with Mike Zimmer, man, so he's the defensive minded head coach, right? And Minnesota was 24th, 25th defensively the last couple of seasons. That's the reason they were losing football games. So I don't know about Mike Zimmer. I really wanted Jim Leonard a couple of years ago.
But he didn't want you.
I know.
That's the problem. Yeah, he didn't want the Packers. He'd rather stay in Madison.
But that's what I want. I want a young, fiery guy. I don't even know, man. Joe Barry was never the right decision. I mean, Correct. He was brutal in Los Angeles, even with Aaron Donald and even with Jalen Ramsey. That wasn't a very good defense when he was there. So they improved the year that he left. I didn't understand the hiring. I don't know really what you could do right now mid-season. There'll be some names out there in the offseason, but then it's too late for this season. I guess it's already too late for this season. You're 3-5. I mean, you're not catching up to Minnesota in the NFC North. We know that, right?
Wade Phillips is a former head coach. Former head coach walks into that locker
How
room with
old is Wade Phillips, though?
like 100. I don't know. I don't care how old he is. I do not care. He's funny as hell on Twitter, by the way, if you don't follow him. I'm just saying, like, I would be completely open to that. Now, whether or not he'd be completely open to coming in mid-season to taking over a defense with none of his own assistant coaches, he may not. He may be like, I'll wait till the year's over and then I'll come in and hire my own staff. But that's something you got to consider. And the other thing about Matt LaFleur is, and I'm not saying he's different than anybody else. I think this happens in all workplaces, just to clarify. He's really only brought in guys that he knows or somebody on his staff has connections with, right? I mean, he's never, that I know of, ever brought somebody in that nobody on his staff knew or ever worked with. He's never brought in an outsider where literally nobody on the staff has ever worked with this guy, and he rolls the dice and says, let's see how this is going to go. And I don't know if Wade Phillips has worked with any of these people or not. I have no idea. But again, for a half a season, to see what happens, to see what he could do with this defense, to see what he would do with Jaire Alexander and Stokes and so forth. I mean, Stokes, you can argue, has gotten worse from his first year to this year. As far as a player goes, Rasul Douglas, that was clearly lightning in a bottle last year, and they paid him for it. And that has happened. And then Devondre Campbell, from everybody I talk to that watches these all 22 films and everybody I talk to says pretty much having Quay Walker next to him is really screwing everything up for him at this point.
It really is. That's been the issue, and Quay, I liked the pick, but Quay was going to be a little bit of a project. Both guys in the first round were going to be projects. You just think, they come from this Georgia defense. We just watched them in the SEC title game.
Plug and play.
Game.
Right.
They weren't the best players on that defense, though. I mean, I don't really know what they're going to be able to do again, like this season, because Joe Barry is so set in his ways. He's not going to change anything with these schemes. And you go back, you look at the film, and you're completely right, though. Every single guy has regressed under Joe Barry, not just the young guys. I mean, the old guys that got paid as well. Devondre Campbell, Rasul Douglas. These are guys that have been around the league for a little bit for the last couple of years, bouncing around from team to team. They're regressing. The young players are regressing. The only guys, I mean, I'll say this, Preston Smith, again, last night, he's playing hard right now. He's getting a little bit older, but he's playing his ass off right now. Jaire is still a top corner in the league. I know he had a rough game a couple weeks ago, but he's still a top corner in the league, top 5, I would say. And Rashawn Gary, he's great, he's solid. Other than that, though, I don't trust anybody on the defensive side of the ball right now.
Now think about that.
Play has been terrible.
Think about that. You didn't mention Kenny Clark. Kenny Clark had a monster year last year, and this year, how many impact plays has he had? Not many.
Yeah, I mean, when do you ever hear his name, right? We're comparing him. People are comparing him to Aaron Donald. I haven't seen it. And that's the thing. And so is it the scheme or is it the talent? That's what it comes down to, is who do you blame? Brian Gutekunst or Joe Barry or Matt LaFleur?
All right, we got one topic left here. Let's get to it. All right, what positives did you take away from the game? I'll start. I'll tell you, I was smiling. I was happy. I asked for it, and I got it. I wanted double tight ends, tighter formations, run the football off of that, play act off of that. And again, they claimed that would have happened had they had Watson, but regardless. And it was working with the double tight ends. DeGuara was out there. Mercedes Lewis was out there. Tunyon was out there. They were showing jumbo-sized packages, and I was like, okay. All right, good. We're making some progress. We're going in the right direction with this offense. For me, that was the single biggest positive. And the single biggest question mark will now be, will they do this against Detroit next week and continue doing this the rest of the year? Or will Rodgers push his way around and they'll start winging it again? But last night, I was very, very happy with what they did to get that ground game going and to really trust, as you have been saying for a couple of weeks now, the best player on this offense, Aaron Jones, to get the job done. And he got the job done when given the opportunity again.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with, the game plan in the second half. I know you're down 3 scores, but sticking to the run, because my concern was, all right, you put together a nice little drive, you get in the end zone, you get some points on this drive, and then they turn around, and it's the Buffalo Bills. So it's going to be 3-4 plays. They march down the field, 85 yards and a touchdown. Don't go back hero ball on the next drive. And they didn't do that. They stuck with the run. And I liked what I saw offensively. I just like the fight that I saw. Rodgers, again, using his legs a little bit. I know Warren Sharp and some of the national media people were pissed off that him, Aaron Jones, and A.J. Dillon were sharing a laugh on the sideline. I actually like to see that. I like that better than Rodgers sitting by himself moping, not being anywhere near his teammates. I like the young guys stepping up and making some plays last night. Yeah, we may have found another wide receiver, and Rodgers liked that he made an adjustment on his route. That's something that these guys need to do, right? I like Romeo Doubs. It looked like finally finding some confidence. Right now he looks down on himself, and I put that blame on Aaron Rodgers, man. You're a 38-year-old veteran quarterback making $50 million. Go put your arm around this kid. He's clearly very talented. Right now he's going through something. He's young. We're relying on him to make big plays. You have to boost his confidence a little bit. And even though the defense got completely butchered in the first half, especially Rasul Douglas, they showed some fight. I don't want them celebrating down 21 points. But you know what? Like, maybe that carries into the next game. Maybe they show some energy, because the last couple of weeks I've seen no energy. I feel like this team has a lot of talent. The schemes have sucked, and they're playing like they were really reading into their press clippings during the
You're going negative. We're supposed to end the podcast on a positive. You can't even stay on the positive long enough without spiraling into a negative.
This is positive. Last night, I'm saying, like, the last couple of weeks, like, they seemed – I don't know. They seem like going into the season, hey, we're a top 5 defense.
Yeah.
Then they got torn apart the first couple of weeks. Week 1 by Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson. They were down on themselves a little bit, no confidence. I feel like maybe playing primetime Sunday Night Football, being embarrassed the last couple of weeks, being embarrassed last night might be a good thing. I agree with Rodgers on that. So I like the fight that I saw. I'm hoping that it continues. Carries on. They have a good week of practice, because we always have to hear about the good week of practice, and they're at least able to beat the Detroit Lions, man. I don't know about the Cowboys or the Eagles moving forward. Hell, I don't even know about the Bears, but they have to beat the Detroit Lions. That's a one-win football team. And Dan Campbell, I know everybody loves this guy because he yells a lot and does up-downs on Hard Knocks. He's a terrible head coach. Let's be honest. They're a mess.
But this is going to be a Super Bowl for these guys. Dan Campbell's going to have these guys fired up. Like, hey, look, y'all, this is the Green Bay Packers who have owned us and beat us forever. And we got a chance to stomp on them and get our second win. And this fan base will go nuts if we beat Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers, because Dan Campbell needs some support right now. I mean, I know the owner came out and gave him some support, but he needs to win the back the fans, because I think he's losing the fans rapidly. Yeah, they play hard. Yeah, they're in every game, but they keep losing at the end. And that is getting demoralizing quickly. And now, again, you were talking about tanking for CJ Stroud. That organization right there doesn't have a future quarterback. So reality, if I'm a Lions fan, I'm going, this is fine. I'm totally fine with this. You give us one, we're going to get our future quarterback that either can come and play next year or whatever you want to do with Jared Goff. But at least now we've got our franchise quarterback, which they have not had in how long? Now they get that guy. Well, Stafford, I guess, would have been that franchise quarterback that they screwed that whole thing up with. But now you'll get another guy that you can build around going forward. And then you look at the Packers, they look like they're going the exact opposite way as you. So sacrifice another crappy year, get your franchise quarterback, and see what happens at that point. I'm looking forward to hearing what Roger says on McAfee. And I'm looking forward to doing another Curd and Long on Wednesday to react to that. Because I'm telling y'all, if they lose this game to the Lions, Mount Aaron is going to explode. I guarantee it's going to happen. Whether it's in the game on the field and they catch it on camera, whether it's at the podium and he snaps and goes snap, crackle, pop on a couple of reporters, or whether you hear about it afterwards in the locker room, him throwing crap and losing his cool. Because happy, joy, love guy here, that's not going to last much longer. They lose 5 in a row, and the 5th one being the Detroit Lions, Ryan. It's going to be a huge, huge deal if they lose to that Lions game.
Oh, he's going to blow up. We know that's coming. But when is Matt LaFleur going to blow up? Because I feel like every press conference is the same press conference. And you know what kind of bothers me a little bit? I always feel like he just looks sad. He looks the way that I look after these games.
Yes.
I don't want my head coach looking like that. I want my head coach after a loss looking like Mike Tomlin, just coming to the podium, swaggy. He doesn't care. He knows they're going to be fine. Even if they're not going to be fine, he makes you feel like they're going to be fine. I feel like in that locker room, LaFleur's so nervous. I said last night, they're not covering plus 11. I made a big mistake with this bet because Matt LaFleur looks more nervous than I look right now. That rubs off on the guys in the locker room. You know, Dan Campbell, yeah, he's kind of a joke. Let's be honest, man. He's doing up downs. That whole coaching staff, it's all former players, man. It's like Juice McAllister. They're all just yelling at each other. It's a clown show over there. but at least they have some damn confidence and some balls in there. I feel like the Packers, man, after every loss, everybody's so wimpy and mopey and down on themselves. So I want to see some fight, some fire from this team. We saw a little bit of it last night, but that starts with the head coach. I love Matt LaFleur. I'm not trying to rag on the guy, but I don't know. I need to see something, man. I need to see him pissed off.
You're right about that. I mean, he looked like he was going to
walk all over him.
At halftime of that interview at halftime with the reporter, he looked like he was ready to cry coming out of halftime as far as what they were going to do differently and how this whole thing was going to change.
He's like, I just want to see some fight. He's begging his guys.
Yes, I totally agree with you on that as far as how he looks. All right, that'll do it for another episode of Curd and Long. We'll talk to you again on Wednesday. Enjoy. Tweet at Sparky Radio and at Ryan Horvat. Let us know what you think of the Curd and Long podcast. If you disagree with something that we said, whatever the case may be. And look forward to talking to you on Wednesday. Can't wait to hear what Aaron Rodgers has to say next. Have a good one. Toodles.